Hi guys, my name is Michael Cavazos. I use he, him, she, her, they, them pronouns, any of the pronouns. You have your choice. I am the new artist in residence at Centro Cultural, and I'm super excited to be here and to share a little bit about the work I do and the work I plan on doing.
Michael, can you tell us a little bit about your artistry work? Who are you as an artist?
Well, I do a lot of different work. I've been creating art for a very long time. In school, as an undergraduate, I studied acting, and then in graduate school, I went to the new school and I studied media studies. So my work tends to fall within theater and sort of visual arts. I'm also a painter, and throughout the years, I've always sort of looked at race, gender, sexuality, identity issues in my work. So a lot of the plays I write, a lot of the theater I make, and a lot of the visual work that I do really pertains to being a person of color, specifically Chicano.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to kind of making it out here to Portland, Oregon? What has you here, today as part of our community?
Yeah, well, it's been a long journey. I actually, so I grew up in San Antonio, Texas. Beautiful town, beautiful people. My high school was 99%, Hispanic, Latino, and but I was queer growing up, so and still am. Ta-da! And so it was very hard to be in sort of this machismo environment, and this would have been in the 90s. So as soon as I graduated from high school, I knew that I needed to sort of venture on my own and explore the world and try to find a place that felt like I was accepted and I could be who I wanted to be. So I went to school in Boston. I went to Emerson College, and when I started studying acting, I really sort of blossomed because suddenly I was a new person, right? New space. I was on the East Coast. It was an opportunity for me to be not what I was expected to be as a Mexican American growing up in that community. So in Boston, I explored and I started writing a lot, and eventually I wrote my first play, which was produced as part of a playwriting festival in college. And then I needed to move to New York because I wanted to act. So I moved to New York, and I was there for a year before I started working at the new school. I needed to support myself. I became an administrator for the university, and that eventually paid for my grad school. We have all grown up sort of in this media society, so I was really interested in the depiction of Latinos, the depiction of people of color. So I went into media studies to sort of explore that with the focus on documentary work. And so while in New York, I performed, I was creating video work, and it was wonderful. I was there for about 10 years. And then I fell in love, and my now husband got a job offer here in Portland. And so we came to Portland, and it was culture shock. It was crazy. I had never been around so many non-people of color. It's a very white city. So for the first couple of years, I really struggled sort of, again, finding my place, trying to figure out who I am in this new world. And so eventually I found my way into the theater community here and started creating work again about identity.
We're very excited to have you at Centro. I know they can hear me a little bit. It's not as clear as you. So if you want to let them know that they can ask you some questions here in the chat while we kind of go through, so we'll have some questions.
Yes, if you have any questions, you can put them right in the chat, and the administrators here will relay them to me, and I'm happy to answer them.
So one of the questions I want to kick off with is, what are you working on for your residency? What is your project that we're getting ready to kick off here?
Well, I started thinking a lot again now as an older artist. I think as artists, we often get sort of obsessed, or sort of not obsessed, maybe we concentrate on specific things that have affected us in our life. So for me, it has always been sort of my queerness, and sort of finding the line, you know, of what is masculine, what is feminine, what is Mexican, what is American, what does it mean to be a Mexican that doesn't speak Spanish? You know, where is that border? And what is it like to live in that borderland? So I started really wanting to return, now that I'm in Portland, return to those initial ideas that I had as a young person going to college, of like trying to reconnect with myself. So I started listening to a lot of music, and I started thinking about Selena Quintanilla, which everybody knows, cultural icon, amazing, and today still, even though she was killed in 1995, today still so prominent and still such an aspirational sort of figure for the Latino community. And I started thinking about her own journey of language. You know, she grew up not speaking Spanish, and eventually through music found the language and learned it. And I love that she was embraced by not only Mexican Americans, but also by Mexicans. And so I'm reinvestigating that line and trying to use her as an inspiration for reconnecting with your roots. She has this quote she said at one point that's like, you're never too old to connect with your roots. And I thought that was really interesting because she learned Spanish so late in her life. And I think as an American, right, living in this country, and now I've lived on every coast and all over the place, I'm always trying to find that balance. And Portland, because it's so white-centric, I thought, let's give voice to the Latino population here, right? Let's tell a story that the Latino population will embrace and resonate with.
What does it mean to you? I mean, kind of adding on to that a little bit, to be a part of this pilot residency program for Centro.
Well, super exciting. I mean, you know, again, in my daily theater work in Portland, it is massively sort of very white, right? All leadership mostly, and most of the theater companies in this area are white. And so again, you know, when I first moved to Portland, I remember there was one day, probably a year and a half into me living here, I was living in Southeast Portland, and I realized, where are the brown people? I said, where are the brown people? So I took a trip on the bus just to sort of explore the town, and I went to Northeast Portland, and suddenly I saw some brown people. And I was like, okay, how do we bring us all together? How do we connect? And so being part of the Centro Residency, where there's such a vibrant Latino community here, I'm super excited to connect and really build community.
Speaking of kind of being in Oregon, and you've touched on it a little bit, but I'd like to kind of dive into it more. What has been your experience as a color of artist in Oregon, and kind of what spaces you've been able to access and thrive, or possibly, you know, feel restricted in?
So I think in the last few years, things have shifted, certainly. When I first started theater in Portland, it was just about me getting my foot in the door. So I was very fortunate to work with a theater company called Imago Theater. They do some really brilliant movement work, and I was really excited to work with the directors there because they're so, really very brilliant, and I was excited to learn from them. But I wasn't thinking about race at the time. I was thinking more about, I just need to get in the door, and then we can figure it out. But as I continued to do work, I realized I am the only brown person in the room a lot of times, and I really needed to find community. So there's this wonderful artist, his name is Joaquin Lopez, and he did a show called Voz Alta, which really was a beautiful project where he would interview community members about their life story, and primarily they were Latino, and he would tell their story through their own words, through interviews, but also with music. And when I attended that first event, I realized how large a community there was, because everybody came out to see that. So I started working with him very closely, and eventually my community of Latino artists grew. And so what's my question? Sorry.
I think this is a great segue into kind of the next question on the radar, but go ahead.
But I would say this, because, okay, so what I was going to say is, then the pandemic hit, right? And then George Floyd happened. And so suddenly we had all of these theater companies putting out DEI statements, right? Statements about equity, statements about Black Lives Matter, statements about, being equitable to everyone. And so suddenly, because I feel like I'm one of few POC artists, suddenly I started getting a lot of calls, and I was asked to be on panels, and I was asked to be guest speaker, and I was asked to do a lot of things. So I feel like there is work towards equity happening in the theater community, but leadership still is white, so there's a lot of missteps still happening. So I'm really hoping through this project and my own theater company, which is called Morivivi Theater, that we can start building a larger sort of network of Latino artists and give them a home where they can create the stories that they want to share, that are pertinent to our lives.
We actually have a great question from our first artist in residence, Karina Ramirez Velasquez, who, in the vein of kind of what you were touching on, is who has supported you in your journey as an artist? Who's been some of your, big advocates and people pushing you forward?
Well, I have to give a shout out to my husband. My husband's amazing. When we moved to Portland, and I think he realized sort of the culture shock I was feeling, because you think about New York City, where I was, and I was there for 10 years. You get on a subway and you hear every language, you see every color, you're surrounded by diversity. And when I first got here, I was looking for just regular work. I needed to survive, right? I wanted to contribute to our family. So I ended up working for corporate America, and I was working for a photo studio for a little while down in Milwaukee, where I was doing work for Target Canada. And then I ended up going to Nike, where I was working in their photo studio as well, and helping to produce photo shoots. And so that life of this sort of 9 to 5 lifestyle now is the time. Why don't you just pursue art? So he has been my biggest supporter, not only emotionally, but really financially, because I realize my privilege in that I'm able to focus on art, and not a lot of people of color are able to do that.
Great. We have a great question here from Luis Hernandez, who I just lost it, so give me a second.
Hi, Luis. We're looking for your question.
Where did it go? Oh, there it is. So it's asking about your process kind of as an artist, which I think this is a great time to shout out your beautiful notebook, which I think, is a part of the process, which we shared a little bit on the story. I don't know if you want to pull it on and share it if you're comfortable, just the front page.
Well, I'll say this. I'll say this. So I'm a company member with Hand to Mouth Theater, also who have been also wonderful supporters of my work. And through them, I really started learning devising techniques. Now, I was creating work in New York long ago with a sort of a sketch comedy troupe. And what I realized working with Hand to Mouth is that I was already devising, and I didn't realize that's what it was called, what we were doing. So through Hand to Mouth and these devising techniques, I really sort of immersed myself in ideas around the things I'm interested, right? So for Selena, for example, the story that I'm trying to write, it's about living in the borderland, and it's about the dichotomy, right? Like, again, American, Mexican, virgin, whore, pop culture, Tejano music. Like, I'm trying to really explore all those things. So as a visual artist, a lot of the things that I do, I also do a lot of like stencil work and like sort of graffiti work. So I created my little Selena stencil. And I just started this residency, and I just basically just start like collaging and taking notes and drawing and sort of just exploring the things about the topics I'm interested in, and trying to find a way to organically tell a story with all of those ideas.
The question of like, what's your process? What are your tools? So we love that. And do you want to speak a little bit more too on kind of your visual artwork? Because I know, we're focusing on a theater play piece here, but you do a lot of visual artwork as well.
I do.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, that came out of me needing a form of expression when I wasn't doing theater. So, first year in Portland, I bought some paints. My husband is a painter, so I sort of stole his tools and just started painting, and a lot of it, because I'm such a Frida Kahlo fan, a lot of it became self-portraits. They were a lot of sort of me, photos of me trying to make peace with this new surrounding. And then that sort of grew to cultural things. I'm also a drag performer. I did drag for 20 years, and a lot of it is about that mask, right? You put on a mask when you're in drag, and there's something explosive that happens to you because you suddenly feel empowered. You feel a freedom to express yourself, and so when I think about makeup and putting on makeup, it actually is painting, right? And so that's sort of how it led into the visual art making.
If you had kind of one big message that you would like any scope of communities to take away from your residency, your project, your artwork, like here today we have this kind of nice voice, on the Centro live today. So what's something you'd like to share in regards to kind of your artwork or just art accessibility in general?
Well, I think a lot of times when we tell stories, what we don't realize is the specificity of stories is actually the thing that tends to be most universal. Do you know? So like if I'm scared to share a thought or a feeling that I have, I know that I'm on the right track because I know that someone else also feels that way. And they may have never seen it, or I may never have seen it in a piece of art. So I'm hoping that through the art, people will see the universality of humanity. And this story that I eventually share will talk about how, even though I'm Mexican American, I've also had the same feelings, the same experiences as the white woman that's in downtown Portland. So.
Apart from the actual play, which everyone will get to catch a little snippet of it on December 3rd for a showcase for all the artist residents, what else do we have to look forward to in your residency?
Oh my goodness.
We have two amazing upcoming elements. You want to speak on them a little bit?
Yeah. Well, it's part of this program. I probably will do a lot of reaching out myself to interview folks, and again, another devising technique, right? Interview people, get inspiration from the stories they have about their relationship to Selena. So that'll probably happen privately, but publicly, I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to having a big dance. We're calling it Night of 1,000 Selenas, and that'll happen on October 28th. And the goal is to play all of Selena's big hits, maybe some new things from Selena. I haven't heard the new album, have you?
A little bit.
And also just build community, right? I think she's so joyous, even in her sad music, it represents so much of the beauty of our culture. So I think that'll just be a wonderful time to have fun and enjoy her music, and hopefully see some Selena drag performers. We'll see.
Yeah, and they'll be here at Centro, October 28th.
Yes.
8 to 12 p.m. We just confirmed, 12 a.m. We just confirmed we can go until midnight, so we're going until midnight.
8 to 12, it's amazing. You gotta come.
Yes, and so that'll be towards the end of the residency, and then the middle, the one we don't have a date for yet, but we're working on it.
Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of research, I've been doing a lot of reading, and I just finished a podcast called Anything for Selena. And it's great. It's really great. And the artist who did this podcast, her name is Maria Garcia. She's out of Boston, and she did this project for WBUR. And she really goes into a lot of sort of the cultural impact that Selena had, not only on her personally, but around the world. So I'm really looking to bring in some people that can speak to their own experience with Selena and how they may have affected them, but also get an academic perspective and looking at sort of how she's affected pop culture. Why is she still so prominent in social media? What can we learn from Selena's experience today? So it'll be a panel discussion with a date to be decided, so stay tuned.
Mid-October-ish.
Mid-October.
We have another little question in the chat here from our friend Chicana Peluda, aka Marisa Sanchez. And she already wants a sneak peek into the story. She's asking, how does your identity, as of, the way you've been thinking of it, intersect with Selena and her legacy? Can you start giving us a little snippet? We're back.
Okay. We had a little glitch. Again, I think it's about the experience that that any person of color has in this country, right? It's finding your place. Selena, again, didn't speak Spanish, eventually learned Spanish, so she won over Mexican audiences, which was surprising to a lot of people. So it's sort of like, what are the lessons that she did, which really was just her graciousness, I think, and how do we, real people, not famous people, travel that line, that borderland, and make peace with the code switching that we have to do every day. You know what I mean? So we'll see. For this piece specifically, the Selena character is really going to be a guide. It's sort of the I'm calling her right now the ghost of Selena, and she is guiding the protagonist of the show, who is a person trying to reconnect with themselves after many years, and also after traveling through so many white spaces.
We have an amazing story here being developed. The work Michael's doing with the residency, the work outside of the residency. So we have a lot going on. Make sure you want to shout out your social medias.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Faggotry. It's PHAGGOTRY. And then I'm just Michael.Cavazos on Facebook. And you can find my website at michaelandthecity.com.
You want to shout out your theater company as well?
Yes, Morivivi Theater. We are up and coming. We have great plans for this new year. And you can find us at morivivi.com as well. Or is it .org? Ooh, you're going to have to try both, morivivi.com or just look up Morivivi Theater. It's MORIVIVI. And then I also am a company member at Hand to Mouth Theater, which is handtomouththeater.org.
Great. Any kind of last little message you want to share? If anyone has a last question they want to drop in the chat, we have a couple more minutes. But anything else you kind of want to share? Any last thoughts, excitements?
Well, I'm super excited about this project. It's going to be so fun. I pulled out Chris Bettis's book on Selena that I'm reading now, and I'm like, I love that this is my research. I love that I get to really focus on a character that I love. So that's exciting. And I would say too, if you have any stories that you want to share about how Selena has inspired you, or how you've seen sort of her cultural effects impact not only here Portland but all across the country, I would love to hear from you. And you can DM me on my Instagram page, which I'm sure will be linked somewhere here.
Yes, we had another little question come in real quick, and I think this is a question for both you and me. It's asking specifically about, how we hope to engage youth in this conversation and moving forward. I mean, on our programming end, I know, we're inviting anyone of all ages for the panel, for the baile. The baile is going to be everyone, but anything else you want to speak on that a little bit?
I would love to engage with youth, because I think what we're still seeing again is that she's culturally relevant to youth. And one of the things that I love, I told this story before. Growing up in the 90s in San Antonio, my mother used to watch telenovelas, and we would have Univision on, or and it was always really interesting to me how fair these Mexican reporters were, right, or Mexican actors were. And then Selena came, and she's just this beautiful brown woman with full lips, with curves, with dark hair and dark eyes. And I think that's so important for children to see and to know that you can aspire to greatness like Selena. So I'm hoping this conversation really will resonate with youth.
Great. I think we're all out of questions over here in the chat. So thank you, Michael, so much for being a part of this. We are very excited to have you at Centro. We're very excited to be a part of this with you.
I'm very excited too.
And everyone, follow, keep us in mind on social media, on the website, and there's plenty more to come. Thank you all.
Thank you.